If you ask any Call of Duty fan what the greatest COD game of all time is, they'll probably say Black Ops 3 or even the original Modern Warfare 2. No matter who you ask though, hardly anyone will ever bring up the one game that I honestly feel is pretty underrated, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Black Ops Cold War was released in November of 2020 and the reactions to the game at launch were pretty mixed overall. Now despite me being a pretty big fanboy when it comes to this game, I'm not one to dismiss its flaws, as at launch, Cold War was far from perfect. The game was absolutely riddled with errors, crashes, and tons of other problems that really soured the game for a lot of people. Hell, I even made a video back in 2020 around the launch of the game talking about some of the issues I had with the game. As time went on though, a lot of these issues were resolved and the game started to become what it should have been at release. Sure, did it take a year or two for that to happen? Yeah, but at the end of the day, you can't deny that the game turned into something great by the end of its lifespan. It also helped that this game's life lasted longer than most other CODs because let's be honest, who the hell bought Vanguard in 2021? The big thing that I feel made Cold War so good was the fact that it was just filled to the brim with content. No matter what kind of person you were, Cold War had at least something to please just about every fan of the franchise. Aside from Black Ops 3 fans, because there is no pleasing y'all. Cold War overall just had a certain vibe to it that I feel no other COD has really been able to replicate since. It leaned so heavily into the arcade side of things and didn't really take itself seriously at all. This game even let you play a set of old Atari games in the main menu, and thank God, because what would I do if I couldn't play Pitfall and Call of Duty? Anyways, enough talking. I think it's time we take a deeper look at Black Ops Cold War, and hopefully by the end of the video, you'll understand why I feel it's as underrated as it is. Now if I'm going to talk about why Cold War was so good, then I feel the best place to start is with the campaign, because Cold War might have one of the best COD campaigns of all time. Now is it better than something like World at War's campaign? Hell no, but it is better than Black Ops 3's at least, so I'll give it that. Black Ops Cold War's campaign more or less serves as a direct sequel to the story of Black Ops 1 and brings back all the classic characters we know and love. Minus their original voice actors though, but honestly that never really bothered me as much as it did some other people. The campaign starts off with a cutscene that does a really good job of capturing that Cold War vibe and sets us up for our first mission in the Netherlands, which begins with a nice little callback to Black Ops 1 in the opening with the flickering of a lighter, which I thought was pretty neat. This is where we're introduced to Russell Adler, also known as my favorite character in this entire goddamn franchise. It's here where we're told we have to move in on a guy named Qasim Javadi, since him and his partner Arash Kanavar had taken hostages in Iran. So playing as Mason and with Woods and Adler by our side, we gun through all the enemies in our way before we end up making it to Qasim, and it's here where the game lets us know that this campaign is going to be a whole lot different than any other COD campaign, since we're given actual dialogue options which do affect the story pretty heavily depending on which choices you make. Qasim ends up revealing that Arash is in Turkey, and we end up capturing Qasim, as doing that nets you evidence for a side mission later on in the game. After arriving in Turkey, we pull up to an airfield and watch as Arash takes out two guys in a car, and after failing to assassinate Arash, we end up having to fight our way through the airfield to take out the plane that Arash boarded before it escapes. This sequence is honestly really cool, as we end up taking out the plane with an RCXD and watch as everything just explodes as a result. Arash ends up surviving, and after interrogating him about the hostages, he reveals that someone named Perseus has been up to something without anyone knowing. After this, we're told that Perseus is a Russian spy and given more information on the history of everything he's done against the US, such as stealing information from the Manhattan Project and orchestrating Viet Cong soldiers to steal an American nuke during Vietnam. It's honestly pretty cool that Raven was able to take Perseus, which was an actual rumor during the Cold War in real life, and formed it into an actual character to create the antagonist for this game. During this cutscene, we find out Adler is the only one who has ever come close to actually capturing Perseus, and then Ronald Reagan comes in and pretty much just gives us the approval for our next mission. Before going into our next mission though, we fast forward 5 weeks later where we arrive at a safe house, this time playing as a character known as Bell, and it's here where we actually get to customize our character's identity, which is a first for a Call of Duty game. After giving Bell an identity 1990, we head back to Vietnam where Bell, Adler, and Sims had their closest encounter with Perseus. We fight our way through Vietnam on the ground and discover the Soviets as well as intel leading to Perseus. After this, we make our way to Firebase Ripcord in this pretty kick-ass helicopter section. After securing a nuke from the base to prevent Perseus from getting his hands on it, our helicopter ends up getting shot out of the sky, and the rest of the mission is just us trying to defend our position until air support arrives. The next mission, Brick in the Wall, sees us investigating two people by the name of Anton Volkov and Franz Kraus due to their connections with Perseus. After arriving in Berlin with Adler, Park, and Lazar on a train, we sneak our way through Berlin to identify Franz Kraus. After identifying Kraus, we head to a bar to meet with Hudson's contact to spy on Kraus. It's here where we find out Hudson's contact has an informant that had gotten taken by German police, and it's here where we're given the option of either rescuing him, killing him, or just completely ignoring him. If you rescue the informant, you end up having to take him out later in the campaign anyways, so it's better to just kill him right then and there since it ties up any loose ends right from the get-go. After that, we're given the task of having to sneak through Kraus's home to place a tracker in a briefcase, which in turn would lead us straight to Volkov. After placing the tracker in the briefcase, we end up getting caught by Kraus and taken straight to Volkov instead. Volkov interrogates us, but it's cut short when Adler, Park, and Lazar show up to capture Volkov. Now technically here you can either kill or capture Volkov, but the better option is to just capture him, so I ended up going with that. After this, we then find out from Volkov that Perseus had smuggled a nuclear device through Berlin, which then sends us to Ukraine to investigate said nuclear device. This is probably my favorite mission in the entire game, as not only is it very reliant on stealth, it also allows you to play old Atari games in the arcade later in the mission, while Woods insults you in the background. Anyways, after making our way through Fake Town, USA, we find out that the nuke that Perseus had stolen was from a CIA program known as Project Greenlight run by Hudson, which meant the nuke was American. So after this, Woods, Mason, and Adler meet up with Hudson to find out what the hell Project Greenlight was all about. Hudson reveals that he knew about the missing nuke, but didn't know it was Perseus until the evidence from Berlin had been collected. It's then revealed that Perseus is after a mainframe at Yamato, and with the help of KGB insider Belikov, we head to Yamato as Mason with Woods like it's Black Ops 1 all over again in search of the mainframe left behind by Steiner and Dragovich. This mission's pretty damn cool since it serves as a nice little throwback to BO1 and even features a numbers Easter egg, which is pretty awesome. After making our way through Yamato, we eventually discover a dig site and with the help of Belikov, escape Yamato with the mainframe secured. After that, we end up finding out that Perseus wanted the mainframe because he was in search of the sleeper agents Dragovich was using during the events of Black Ops 1. As it turns out though, Perseus had erased the names and the only way to get a hold of them was to get inside of the KGB headquarters. So the next mission sees us doing exactly that. This mission sees us playing as Belikov as we infiltrate the KGB headquarters from the inside while hiding in plain sight. This mission is so damn creative with how it's designed and I absolutely love every single bit of it. Essentially, as Belikov, we have to get a hold of a bunker key so we can allow Adler and Bell to make their way in to gather the intel on the sleeper agents. But what I love the most about this mission is that there's multiple ways to go about doing this. You can get a bunker key from the armory by giving the armory guard a cigar, you can poison General Charkov, and there's just so many other ways that I never even got to do myself. This mission also does something really cool in the fact that it connects the Black Ops universe with the Modern Warfare universe, since we see a young Imran Zakayev in this mission. After successfully grabbing the bunker key, we manage to get Adler and Bell into the headquarters, and then as Bell, we fight our way through the bunker to get a hold of the list of sleeper agents before gunning our way out of the Lubyanka building. 2 days later, we find out that someone named Theodore Hastings is one of the sleeper agents, and it's believed that he's the one who Perseus will activate to get the nuke into the US. So our mission is to make it to Hastings in Cuba before Perseus does. This mission is where we get our first real glimpse of Perseus, and by the time we reach Hastings, it ends up being too late as he reveals that Perseus had been given full access to Project Greenlight and was given the ability to detonate all the Greenlight nukes within Europe, which would automatically point the blame towards the US. After this, we head to the evac point until we end up getting hit by an RPG and are given the choice as to whether we rescue Park or Lazar. From my experience, it doesn't make a difference either way, but I ended up rescuing Park in the end. After this, we're taken back to the safe house by Adler, where we're strapped down to a gurney and Adler hits us with his signature phrase, "We got a job to do," which sends us into the second to last mission, Break On Through. Break On Through is one of the greatest missions in any Call of Duty game ever, since there's so many branching paths and ways to complete it. Throughout the mission, Adler will give you specific directions, but you don't have to listen to him. You can instead do whatever the hell you want and go off script. You can go so far off script that you can end up fighting zombies in this mission, which is the coolest thing I've ever seen in a COD campaign. This mission as a whole is just one big mindfuck, and it's awesome. At the end of the mission, we finally learn where Perseus is located, which sets us up to head into the final mission to stop him once and for all. After this mission, it's revealed that Bell was one of the guys that Arash had shot earlier in the game and was given implanted memories, with Adler's "we got a job to do" phrase being used to trigger said memory. With all the information we got from those memories though, and the fact that we had learned of Perseus's location, we tell Adler and everyone else what we had learned so we could finally put an end to Perseus once and for all. It's important to note that in this mission, you're also given the choice of lying about Perseus's whereabouts, which would end up giving you the ending where you kill Adler and everyone else that had helped you throughout the game, but in my opinion, that ending kinda sucks, so it's best to go with the good ending where we end up disabling all the nukes and single-handedly save all of Europe from blowing up. After this, we're then given a rundown on all the choices we made throughout the campaign and shown how they affected the overall ending. Then we're sent into a cutscene where Adler thanks Bell for his sacrifice, until he just fucking shoots us. What the hell? This ending genuinely shocked me the first time I saw it, because it made me realize that maybe Adler wasn't the good guy after all. It's such a good ending, and my god does it have me excited for BO6's campaign. Overall, Black Ops Cold War's campaign is pretty solid. I absolutely love the fact that it relies so heavily on your choices, and the fact that it does the story of Black Ops justice by continuing Black Ops 1 in the best way possible. The campaign even features 2 side missions that you can play by piecing together evidence found all throughout the campaign, and you have to do a bit of puzzle solving to figure everything out. Then there's the safe house that I talked about earlier, which allows you to interact with all the characters and really dig deeper into the story as a whole. Seeing as Cold War's campaign was as good as it was, it really has me hoping the BO6's campaign will be just as good, if not better than it, and if it's not, then fuck me, I guess. Anyways, enough about the campaign. I think it's time we get into talking about the multiplayer. Now, when it comes to the Black Ops games and multiplayer, 99% of the time, the multiplayer experience will always be good. Black Ops 4 is the exception. Cold War's multiplayer is the definition of a fun multiplayer experience, and in my opinion, is the best the mode has ever been in the Black Ops games. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved Black Ops 3's multiplayer, and BO1 and 2 were of course fantastic in their own right, but something about Cold War's multiplayer just kept me hooked for hours on end. The first thing I want to talk about regarding Cold War's multiplayer is of course the maps, because honestly a pretty good majority of the maps in Cold War were pretty solid all around. There were a few not so good ones like U-Bahn and Amsterdam, but maps like the Pines, Moscow, Miami, and Yamantau were extremely well designed and were incredibly fun to play on. I especially loved what Cold War did in terms of how it brought back old maps, as it didn't go overboard with them. In terms of throwback maps, this game had Raid, Hijack, Standoff, and Slums, just to name a few. It was honestly pretty awesome seeing all these maps brought back and remastered with the graphics of Black Ops Cold War. Another thing I loved about Cold War's multiplayer was the abundance of modes, like holy shit, Gunfight Tournament, all the classic party modes, and even Prop Hunt of all things. All of these things added so much to the multiplayer experience and made it 1,000 times more fun than it already was to begin with. Even disregarding all the major things I just talked about, this game's multiplayer still managed to shine in the small things as well. For instance, the progression in this game was the best it's ever been in a Call of Duty game, with leveling up being pretty easy and fast, 25 plus prestigious, and the fact that the grind to unlock stuff wasn't really all that tedious. Then of course there was the awesome looking calling cards and emblems, the incredible looking mastery camos that this game had, and the pretty smooth movement system are just some of the things that made this game's multiplayer feel more fun. Even if you don't think Cold War's multiplayer is better than any of the previous CODs, you still have to admit that it's pretty good here in this game. Speaking of which, something else this game had that was pretty damn solid was of course zombies, and because I don't know shit about zombies, i.e. my last video, I decided to let my good friend Vanikin talk about Cold War zombies instead, as I feel he could do a much better job talking about it than I can. If you want my opinion on Cold War zombies though, I think it's pretty great. With all that being said though, I think it's about time I let Vanikin speak about what made Cold War zombies so great.
Hello, my name is Vanikin. I have Dark Ether on every gun in the game, including melee weapons. You don't. I have 24 days of progress in this game. You don't. I have the Activision ID Kiryu Kazuma. You don't. In all seriousness, I want to thank my friend for giving me the chance to talk about Cold War zombies, cause man, I know life the hell out of this game. But since Shadow has a gun to my head saying keep the script short, I'll do just that. Cold War released with the new Noct remake, aka D Machine, and over time they released the following maps in order, each with varying quality: Firebase Z, C, Mardertoten, and Forsaken. Gameplay is S tier. This is without a doubt the best Zombies has ever played. No questions asked. Gone are the days of you dying because you couldn't vault over a waist-high obstacle. Now you can vault over said waist-high obstacle. Truly revolutionary. Pack-a-Punch also now has a menu that causes grown man children to bitch and moan every time they have to open it. Truly a next-gen Call of Duty. And with this next-gen Call of Duty, there are new groundbreaking technologies such as loadouts. No longer will you spawn in with just a measly pistol. You can now spawn in with whatever you want. A katana, LMG, dual-wield double-barrel shotguns. There are 3 new interactable gameplay changes added to Cold War, which are the armor station, equipment table, and the trial machine. The previously stated trial machine makes it so, you guessed it, doing a trial rewards you with either guns of varying quality, a power-up, a perk, or if you're really lucky, the map's designated wonder weapon. In the equipment table, you can use salvage, which is now drops from zombies randomly, to make either a variety of things such as grenades, semtexes, flashbangs, and monkey bombs, all the way to kill streaks like a chopper gunner or a napalm strike. Armor station is where you can use salvage to either buy armor or upgrade your existing armor to a maximum of 3 levels, or you can upgrade your weapon's rarity. Rarity. This game introduces the concept of weapon rarities, where with a fresh account you can start off with red being the weakest of the bunch, to the max being orange. All this boils down to your gun just doing a little bit more damage than it did previously, but it's nice regardless. Here's a pro tip: if you complete every Easter egg in the game, with a total of 6 in general, you spawn in with your gun starting on purple immediately. Wait, hang on, did someone say Easter eggs? Another staple of COD Zombies is the mentioned Easter eggs, which are back in Cold War and easier than ever. But regardless, they're fun, and I stated earlier, there are 6 of them to do. But wait, there's only 4 maps, and what the fuck is that Outbreak thing you were talking about? Outbreak is, in my opinion, the worst thing about Cold War. I hate that it's just multiplayer dirty bomb maps with just occasional zombies sprinkled in. Gee, I sure they hope don't make the next 2 games zombies based off of Outbreak in some way.
Overall, I think it's safe to say that Cold War is truly an underrated gem in the COD franchise. After everything me and Vanakin just talked about, it's easy to see just how good of a game it truly is. But because the initial launch of the game was so rough, coupled with the fact that COD fans hate anything that isn't Black Ops 3, Cold War never truly gets the appreciation it deserves. If you're watching this video right now and have never played Cold War, I highly suggest going out and buying the game for yourself and giving it a try, because I promise you will not regret it. Or maybe you will, but if you know you're gonna regret it, why are you buying the game to begin with?